Here from quantlabs.net. Just wanted to go over, as requested, some people wanted to know how my experience is going with these freelance websites to find coders. The sites that I'm referring to are Upwork and recently Freelancer.com. My experience with Upwork was not a positive one. Do not go with the cheap people. They usually are questionable. I hired one guy out of the US, didn't get the job done, never returned messages. It's a 2 week process, a waste of time. So, for some of you may or may not know, I am developing a custom expert advisor for MetaTrader. I don't want to get into that and why, but I will explain my experiences with trying to find somebody who can do the job. I had to go through 3 people to figure out how this, I hate to say, freelancer.com site works. And I won't say a waste of time, but it is a monstrosity of a site. First of all, I posted a simple project onto the site with a description of what was needed. From there was an option to hire a recruiter for $10. I thought, $10 ain't nothing. So I hired the guy. He introduced himself on the chat. Within 10 minutes, I had 4 coders bidding on the project. Now, this is a process I am kind of confused on. It's a bid. It's a bid on a project you're putting out there. To me, when you put on a bid, that's the price I expect to pay. No different than eBay. I put up a project or spec. People read or should read it, and they don't. They don't read it. They just give you some generic, yeah, we read it, we understand it, we'll get it working, blah, 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 BS. So some of the bids, you put in a budget, I figure it was between $30 to $250. That's what I thought. Was a pretty simple expert advisor or EA. So I started getting bids of like $35, $50, $20 from all these places that you wouldn't think coders are from, but you thought, whatever. I mean, they're doing their thing in these countries. So I worked with a recruiter, and the first thing that this recruiter did was he decided to put in a web designing company who was going to charge me $700 to do an EA, but they're a website company. Go figure that. It was way out of my league, and I knew it was. So I told him that this guy was completely off as a recruiter, as usual, all crap recruiters are. So I hired the dude, or told the dude, yo, the web designing company's no use. So he recommended somebody else. This dude, well, actually, that's not true. Then he said, go with this guy. So I said, okay, I'll think about it. Didn't know what I was doing. So in came this dude from Nigeria, and all the countries I'm going to mention now about these people, nothing against the country or the people of the country. This is specific to this country. So the first guy came in at $35. I thought, that's a deal. So I started kind of chatting with him for two questions. Then I started understanding about this thing called a placeholder. He puts in the bid at $35 as a placeholder so that I will be attracted to his bid and then start talking to him. And I go, yo, dude, this ain't right. This is a bait and switch, which it is. That would never happen on eBay. So it got testy and really bad. And this is a coder to hire on Freelancer. I'm going to be honest. I'm really shocked at these sites. Upwork and Freelancer are absolute shit at what they do in these jobs. They are garbage. They do not vet these people. They do not put them through some kind of customer service test, any form of anything. They just hire people that could be walking from under a rock or from outer space. Freelancer don't care about who they bring in. Can you imagine if you go into an Uber car, you hire an Uber car, and the guy decides he's going to rob you, or you're going to go into an Uber car and he doesn't take to the place that you want to go and charges you 10 times that's what's going on with Freelancer. So anyways, you hire this dude from Nigeria, $35 within two things, and it's a simple question. Do you understand the project? Do you have any questions? And are you okay with the bid that you put in at $35? Then the doofus comes back and says, no, it's $350 without no questions, without any knowledge. He just pulled a number out of his ass, which was out of budget. That's what started this whole thing. So he was just clearly looking to get paid, but not understand what was needing to be done, which is a total scam in my eyes. So Freelancer, the recruiter goes, well, that's just how it is. That's how the system works, blah, 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 blah. And I can imagine Uber sitting there saying, yeah, that's the drive, that they're their contract, that we don't have control over that. That's BS. Like, if you have a certain standard you expect of a website company, so you can hire a coder or whoever you're hiring, they'll have a certain standard and gets the job done, so you don't have to go through any fiascos. Freelancers don't care about that. And same with Upwork. They're just garbage people hiring garbage coders. But you will find some good people like I did on Freelancer. I got lucky here, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. So I told the recruiter, this guy's useless. He's getting copy and he's being insulting. The guy didn't care, and it drops. So I said, okay, I'll move on to the next guy. So I hired this guy from out of Venezuela for $50. So I'm trying to same approach. Do you understand the project? Are you okay with the price that you bid on? I already knew that this was going to be a placeholder, so I knew what to expect out of that. So then the guy comes back and says, well, if you want me to answer that question, you have to hire me. And I thought, what kind of BS is this? You want me to hire you when I don't know who you are so that I can get an answer out of you on what the final project price will be. So I was PO'd at that, and I told the recruiter that. Again, same lame answer. Again, this site boggles my mind. And you're paying $10 for it. I did get some good contractors out of the recruiter, and I found one guy. He was out of Eastern Europe. I'm not going to tell you who he is or what country he's out of, but I will tell you, and this is what I want to tell you, what to look for when it comes to hiring at least coders for your work. This guy was very good, and I'll tell you why. If you put up a project and in the bid he asks you a question, what do you mean by this from within your project description? You have somebody who's actually reading the description, understands the project, what you need, and that's a very, very good, strong sign. So I knew this guy was going to be good. And he was the second choice out of the recruiter, so he's making himself look good. So again, now, all the people I've gone through, except one, actually two, the guy from Nigeria was his preferred or referred contractor. Only stick to those people. Do not stick with these Yahoo losers that put in low bids on your project. They're going to waste your time, so don't go with them. And also make sure if you do put a project on freelancer.com, always hire for the extra $10 to get a recruiter. They'll help filter out the rubbish people on Freelancer. So I find this guy who's really good. He actually read the description and he asked the question in the bid, what do you mean by this? I said, oh, that's a good sign. He was at the higher end of the budget, which is $250. I thought, great, no problem. I'm willing to pay that. So I emailed him or chatted with him. He responded. And remember, these guys are like hours ahead of you, so you have to be patient on them sometimes to get back to you. He was pretty reasonable within 4 or 5 hours, so that was cool. So we started chatting about what was needed, but the beautiful thing on what he wanted was he was asking me very specific questions on the strategy or the bot or EA that I was wanting to build. He would ask, what happens if this happens? Or what happens if that happens? And I would tell him, and then all of a sudden you have a totally new strategy to work with because he had amazing analytical skills. So you knew what you're dealing with as a coder or as a developer, that this guy was good. So these are the things that you need to look for when you're hiring somebody to make sure they're actually reading the description, they're asking maybe one or two things in the bid before you actually approach them to bring them on. And also, as I said, make sure they're preferred. So the conversation moves along with all these questions and answers about the actual strategy. And he actually came up with some stuff about questions about things I never considered. So as a result, the specification of what was originally was wanted radically changed because of this conversation. And it was because of him who had the analysis skills to come up with certain conditions I never even thought of. So I knew this guy was good. So we started finalizing everything. I said, okay, cool. Originally, I thought maybe this thing, because it's or should be simple enough to get done in about 3 days. He came back and says, no, it's going to take 5 days. Fine, no problem. Then I asked him $1 million question, how much is this going to cost? Because the scope had changed. Basically, what I was wanting to have is I've got a Python script that I write that sends out a signal, a file, out with an attachment saying, put an order into the MetaTrader and be done. And that's it. And then you have exit entry. I don't know MetaTrader. That's why I'm hiring a coder. So he said, no, it doesn't work like that. So essentially, it's radically changes the set. So instead of it'll send out a signal for an order, put the order in, but now the expert advisor, the EA, has to do the trading logic to close out the position from within MetaTrader. So that's a lot of extra work, a lot of new trading rules and new logic that has to be built into the expert advisor. This is all because of this guy. Really impressive. So then the $1 million question comes up. How much is this going to cost? Because I thought it was going to be like $500, $700, $800. Well, it's now from 3 days to 5 days. So the budget went from $250 to a whopping $350. Now, when I factor that in, A, I don't know MetaTrader. B, to actually code this up, this would easily, if I was to build myself out on this kind of project, this would easily cost me probably $5,000 to build. $350 US? That's a steal. So I got to come back, write up the final spec based upon what was chatted about, so that he clearly understands when this condition happens, that happens, da 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 da. So I got to send that back to him. But so far, these are the sort of things you need to look for when hiring a coder. So I'll repeat this. I would stick at the higher end of your budget. Only go with referred or preferred contractors. Yeah, definitely hire a recruiter to help you out, filter these people. And also try to find people that actually read the project or the bid, the project or the description when you put it up, or the spec, I guess you could call it. And then when they come back in the bid and they got a question, chances are you've got somebody who's going to be good, meaning that they're actually reading the project, needing to know what's done. That's a good lead to have a conversation with them, so you don't have to deal with all the other doofuses out there. One other thing I forgot to mention is always check out the reviews. Duh. Make sure that they're a specialist in what you need, not like some dude that does CAD CAM and then he's going to now all of a sudden be able to develop expert advisors for you for MetaTrader. Stay away from people like that. I mean, they may do, but if they specifically say that's all they do is build an EA for MetaTrader, go with them, among other things I've mentioned. They will also maybe say, I also work with NinjaTrader, I work with so-and-so. That's okay. But make sure that they fully understand and focus only on that. The other big thing that I learned from this whole experience is a little marker at the top of each coder or freelancer with freelancer.com. Most of all, there's a marker in there that gives you a rating on how much have they completed projects. So there was a correlation between the idiots and the people that actually knew what they were doing. So when I look at the two other folks that I mentioned from Venezuela and Nigeria, they're indicators for abandonment projects that were either too technical or too complicated or out of their when they take the job. That will tell you when they abandon the project, meaning they can't finish it because it's too over their head. The guy from Venezuela was 3 point something, which is really low. So only 30% of the project that he gets, he actually finishes. For the Nigerian dude, I think it was around 50%. So this is a very good indicator. The guy that I'm going to hire is about 70%. He's about 7 out of 10. So that's pretty strong. So that's a really good indicator to look for. because what I've learned from reading about other reviews on Freelancer, people hiring people, what typically can happen is that they will put in these low bids and not stick to them and change it, like the Nigerian dude tried to multiply it by 10. The other thing is a lot of these freelancers will do whatever it takes to get the bid. So you may think you're hiring the right guy or gal, be able to think that they're the right fit, but they can't finish the job in a specified amount of time that they specify because it's way out of their wheelhouse, I guess. And that is really important because then you'll end up wasting your time. That's what happened to me on the Upwork site with this kid. I personally think he was a drug addict. He took the job, sounded it, and it took him 2 weeks with nothing. And you're really going to waste your time on that. So always being sure of that. So now I got to be concerned about a couple things when I hire this guy. And this is what typically happens on freelance. Will a job get done as promised? Will it be worth the amount that I pay? I think it is because it's only $300, $350. It's a very low risk investment because I can learn from the code if I get it. On top of that, if there's a problem, because you have to pay up front the amount to freelancers who hold an escrow until the job's done and I'm satisfied, then that guy gets paid once I'm satisfied with the code. So that's a few things. The other thing I've realized on freelancer.com, if you're paying by credit card, that's a problem because they'll bill all these other things regularly after the project's complete. There's a lot of complaints about that. So I'm figuring if you're going to do this, pay by PayPal. The reason you pay by PayPal, because PayPal is very strict on this. If you are paying for a service of a certain amount, that's it. That's all their freelancers allowed to take. If they take anything beyond that, they will have to explain to PayPal on why that happens. So you have that policy in place to keep you safe. On top of that, with PayPal, if things go off the rails with this project for whatever reason, I hope it doesn't, you'll be able to also use PayPal, which is much more strict than a credit card company because it's not the bank. Well, it's between you and the vendor. You figure it out. It's not that. With PayPal, they're very strict. They'll give the vendor 10 days to say why they should keep the money and why I shouldn't get reimbursed for what I paid out. So you get that protection over 10 days. Not the best, but it's better than a credit card and through a lame bank. So those are the things to look for when you hire a coder through these freelancer sites or freelance coding, nomad, digital, whatever sites. So I hope those tips give you some help. And I may report back on how this project went and the EA itself. Okay, I'm gonna make another video about that in a minute. So yeah, we'll keep it that way. So thanks for watching, and hopefully, as I said, this will help you out. Talk to you later.